Welcome to White Widow Sports, your front row seat to all things sports. Whether it's the biggest plays, the hottest takes, or the stories behind the stats, we've got you covered. From the plays, athletes, fantasy football, or just random sports, we're breaking it all down with passion, precision, and plenty of debate. So lace up, grab your gear, and let's get into it.
Sounds good.
And let's talk about what we saw last weekend in the conference championships.
Well, I've heard from some of our loyal subscribers and fans that they have really been looking forward to this particular segment of the podcast. So I'm going to make them wait a little bit longer. I'm going to talk about the other game. Philadelphia actually did to Washington what I thought Detroit might do to Washington. They ended the Cinderella story. I know going back and listening to last week's episode of our podcast, one of the things that we talked about was Philadelphia is a very good team. They're well rounded. We know that they've got offensive playmakers. We know that they've got defensive playmakers. And what was really going to shape the way this team or the way this game worked out was if the Washington defense was able to stop the Philadelphia offense the same way that we thought the Philadelphia defense could stop the Washington offense. That was an astounding what we saw. Philadelphia putting up 55 points. They scored 7 rushing touchdowns. Saquon and Jalen Hurts each had 3 rushing touchdowns. And then rookie out of Clemson, Will Shipley, he also added on a score late in the game to make it 7 total rushing touchdowns. Hurts also had a passing touchdown as well, so 4 total for him. But what did y'all think about that game and what you saw from the Eagles as they head to their next Super Bowl appearance?
I thought that was an amazing performance. We did all predict the Eagles to win that one. Whether we saw it coming like this, I'm not so sure about that. We knew Saquon would do his thing, but I'm not sure we saw a big blowout. And while I was doing my looking at the numbers for this one, I don't want to stray too far off topic. But are you seeing? I know they had some close games, but are you seeing a team get really hot at the perfect time right now, or did they just run into a Cinderella whose time was up? I think about Ohio State getting in their playoffs, getting real hot and running through everyone. Obviously, the Eagles have had some close games, so it's not exactly the same. But when you're coming off a 55 to 23 win, 7 rushing touchdowns, a decent defensive performance too, does that carry you into the Super Bowl in a big way with a whole lot of confidence? I like to think it does. I'm not making a prediction yet, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that particular game, Brian.
Yeah, I think Barkley for the last few games of the season just went totally nuts. I know they set him that regular season. They kind of set him that last game, so you didn't really see that. But I mean, even before that, you could almost see him get like super hot, really starting to believe and getting that confidence. Not in himself. I think he's always had confidence in himself. Um, but I think he's starting to trust his linemen, trust the holes, trust the concept from the coaches. So and in that gives him a lot of confidence. So I think you're seeing it all come down at the right time. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. You know, he's been with the team a little bit longer than Barkley. So, but he's still, into the season, he's trusting it. He's trusting the process. So I think it's fun football to watch. It's good. I never want to see a blowout like that. And I really deep down was rooting for the Commanders, but at the end of the day, I knew Philadelphia they're too hot. They're too good right now.
Well, I think what you saw from Philadelphia is that they flexed their muscle. So to answer Chris's question of, is this a team that's getting hot? I don't think so. I think Philadelphia has always been capable of being this good, but we've seen them be in the driver's seat of their own destiny for a large portion of this. I mean, obviously they didn't get the 1 seed. The Lions kind of took that one by, I think, a game in the regular season, but Philadelphia has almost at times been nonchalant in some of their games. in that they kind of knew that they were going to win. I mean, you see their players reading books on the sidelines. It almost seems like they're disinterested because they already know the outcome. They almost expect to win games. And they got up because they were playing a division rival in a conference championship game. They really made a statement of, you're not going to be able to stop this brand of football that we have perfected and made famous over the last few years. I know one of the storylines coming into this season was, you know, are the Eagles going to be able to do the things that they did with Jason Kelsey at center, notably the brotherly shove or tush push, whatever you want to call it? Is that still going to be effective without Kelsey? Was he the driving force behind that play? Well, yeah, I'm not saying all of his rushing touchdowns have come this way, but Jalen Hurts putting up 3 rushing touchdowns in a playoff game still shows you that there is a certain level of uh, difficulty in stopping that. And so, I mean, I just think that they flexed their muscle. They did something that they said, you can't stop us from doing this. And I think it is good momentum for Philadelphia, but I don't think it's necessarily a sleeping giant that just woke up. I think that they just, at every stage, they're doing what they need to do and trying to stay healthy along the way.
Yep. I
Yeah,
agree. But that tush push, I mean, you're seeing that every team use that. So I don't,
Every
you know,
team
and
can.
it's effective. If you need a yard, that's a cheap way to get a yard, or not a cheap way, but an effective way of getting that 1 yard that you need.
Both.
And you're seeing it, you know, I don't know that you see it as much in college. I think you will start to see that, you know, that 4th and 1 or that 3rd and 1. That's an effective play to reset the downs. Um, I I think you saw if you watch a lot of high school football, especially around where I live, you know, you see it a lot around here as well. You know, you get that it's a simple play with not a lot of mechanics to it. So, you know, as long as you get a good snap and a good push, you know, it's an easy way to gain a yard.
Well, a lot of times it's saying it's my guys versus your guys.
Yeah.
My guys know exactly what the play call is. My guys know exactly when the ball's being snapped, and they're just taking that offensive advantage. I mean, when I played in high school, I did play snaps on offense and defense, but the thought that I always had, my preference was I didn't like defense because I was not a good athlete. I did not want to have to react and then try to make up to what I was seeing in front of me. I always
Mhm.
preferred playing on the offensive line because I like knowing what the play call was. I like knowing what my assignment was. When we break the huddle and we look and we see that defensive alignment, a lot of it was just scheme based of, I know that because there's a defensive end lined up here, it's this type of block. And it was just up to me to execute that block. And yeah, I always like knowing that. And it gives that edge to the offense. A perfect offensive play beats a perfect defensive play every time. A perfect throw beats perfect coverage. And I think the Eagles have just seen that we know when we put our guys against your guys, even though you know what's coming, you're still not going to be able to stop us.
Mhm.
But not everybody can perform it to the same level that they do. Because my question to you guys next is how much? How much? How much does it cost to get a first down? Because Josh Allen, for all of his millions, could not buy a first down against Kansas City. Chris, I want your
Well,
thoughts.
that
So my thoughts are not going to be pandering as much to I know our fans that want me to trash the refs completely. They do deserve some level of trashing. I think we all saw a first down for the Bills on that one play. You all know which one I'm talking about. Everyone watching and listening. Um, the commentator said, "I believe we have a first down there. Looks like we have a first down there." They said, "No, we're gonna keep it here." And I think I was texting one of you, if not both of you, and I said, "Yeah, it's close. Let's at least see where the measurement is." They didn't come out. They didn't even come out to measure it. And I said, "Oh, what's the deal with that?" And arguably with his size, I think Josh Allen's better than Jalen Hurts at doing that sort of thing. Maybe they haven't run it as long or they're not as known for it, but Josh Allen's a big boy and he can actually put some force behind it. to where Jalen Hurts, I feel like, and I've seen his weight room pictures. I know he's a strong guy too, but he can't put the same amount of force behind it. So I feel like it's actually got a better chance of working with a larger athlete like that. As far as the calls as a whole, I'll probably put the gloves on more than anyone on here. So maybe it is good to go first with me here. I think that despite the refs, Kansas City played a great game. So you can't place it all on the refs. They got their openings, they got their shots, they obviously have a good team. They wouldn't be where they're at on refs alone. I think that I think that's notable that they have gotten a lot of calls that maybe led to wins that would have been losses. They still would have been a playoff team, and they may still have been in this situation. Um, Josh Allen's a beast. He'll be back. He'll never quit. He has the heart of a champion. He's going to get that championship at some point. So I'm not going to place all blames on the refs. I think Kansas City played a good enough game to win. I think it's unfortunate that a few things were decided by the refs. Now, you two, please take the gloves off and go nuts.
There's no love lost between me and refs, especially when it comes to Kansas City. I never think a referee should determine the outcome of a game. You saw it with the Commanders game where he kept jumping over the line when they were doing one of the tush pushes. They knew it was coming. Linebacker or safety, I think it may have been the safety, kept trying to jump the snap count because, like Brad said earlier, the defense doesn't know when that snap count's coming. So all you can do sometimes is guess. For the ref to come out and say, if you keep on, I'm just gonna award them points. You
might as
Come on
well.
now, get a. I get it, you can do it, but I don't know. You got your 5 seconds of fame. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just don't like it when it comes to Kansas City. Their calls always go their way. Come on now. Um, and I was going to look up the stats of how many calls were against Buffalo and how many fouls were against the Chiefs. What's the ratio here? And I'm not talking about just okay movement. 5-yard penalties. I'm talking about the whole gamut. How many 15-yard penalties did Buffalo get to how many 15-yard penalties did the Chiefs get? How many first downs did they get awarded because of something that really didn't exist? And that's been all year. I'm not just talking about this Buffalo game. I'm talking about all year long. It's been like that for Kansas City. Quit trying to dictate who wins the football game. I don't tune in on Sunday to see the black and white shirts. I don't. I don't want to see you. I want to see football. I want to see real football. Do I think they need a job there? Yes. You have to keep it has to be an organized sport. You have to keep the rules. But am I there to see you call or dictate the outcome of a game? Absolutely not. So I think the NFL and Roger Goodell should take a hard look at the referees and see, is there a bias or an unbiased decision there? Are they uh, basically doing the outcomes of the game? If they are, you need to fire them. You need to get rid of them, get some different refs in there, so on and so forth. I don't think it's at all levels of the game. I don't think you see this in high school. I know we all have a friend who is a referee. Shout out Kyle. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Um, it would be interesting to get his take on it because he's gonna see it uh, at the high school level, and I'm sure he's watching it at the college and pro level. For him doing that job, how does it compare? I'd love to get his take on that someday.
Well, I mean, I think just to kind of combine what you two were saying, Chris touched on this. Nobody's trying to take anything away from the Chiefs and the talent that they have.
Hmm.
In fact, when I was talking about the Eagles trying to not necessarily coast their way, but they knew they would be here. They were preparing all year long to be at this stage of the game. And we actually saw similar stories with Travis Kelce coming in this season. He was not having big productive games. It made a lot of people mad in the fantasy football world, but they were relying on their younger guys. They had Rashee Rice before his injury. They had just used a first round pick on Xavier Worthy. They were trying to get him acclimated to the pro game. They lost Isaiah Pacheco. They brought in Kareem Hunt. They were basically trying to win in other ways besides having to rely on Kelce, because Kelce is getting older. He's got some mileage. He's taken big hits and things of that nature. They were trying to preserve him for this run because the teams that know that they're good, they are trying to preserve themselves for this run. And so the Chiefs are a good enough team to win or lose on their own merit. I think the frustration with a lot of people comes in is when they see that bias at saying, why is this necessary? If the Chiefs are as good as what we believe they are and what they are paraded to be, especially in the media, then why do they need this unfair advantage already tacked on to where their opponents almost feel like, well, I mean, Brian said it a couple weeks ago, you can beat any team across from you, but when they have the refs on their side, it's almost impossible to beat those. And so it's one of those where Philadelphia kind of did that with Washington. You see it in the UFC. If you don't want to lose a decision, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. You can think that you just beat the brakes off of a guy for 15 minutes and then find yourselves at the other end of a decision loss. And so it's like, don't leave it up to the refs. When you score 7 rushing touchdowns and you win by 32 points, there's not a call that the refs could make that could cost you that game at that point.
Sure.
They would have to award a lot of touchdowns to the other team to keep up with that. And so I think with Kansas City, and the reason why people think that there's a lot of conspiracy around them to get them to this stage, to push them to the Super Bowl, even looking at the spread, I think it was a 2.5 point game and they won by 3. It's like, okay, well, we knew it was going to be a good game. We knew it was going to be a close game. The line dictates that, but it's hard to feel like Kansas City wasn't assisted to that 3-point win. Everybody on the broadcast said it was a first down. We were expecting Buffalo to get that chance to go down and make a play to win that game. I think some people might have been expecting overtime. I just feel like we are robbed of a better finish than what we got. It's very anticlimactic. It feels like this one was taken from the Bills and not by Kansas City's talent. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it.